What's up, guys? We got a really special stream today. Very impromptu, but I am excited about it because this is as Axis put it in his tweet, the resurrection of the old trifecta. I don't think these guys need any special introduction. You know who they are. You've been listening to them for a while, and we're going to have a nice, cool hour conversation because a lot has changed. A lot of really bullish stuff has been happening, and I'm sure your portfolios reflect that. And so, without further ado, let's bring up the guys themselves. axisALiVE, Silver, the Antidote. What is up, gentlemen? How's it going?
Yo, yo, yo. What's going on, everybody?
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. Guys, we are back. We are live. This is the Trifecta from a little while ago. Those who were inside our groups earlier, a lot of information that we gave out. A lot of people enjoyed it. A lot of people complained, but hey, we're here to win and we're going to win, right? So,
Yep.
Fantastically, these guys have come very short notice because I'm a very impulsive guy. I'm like, okay, guys, we need to talk, right? There's a lot going on and there's a lot going on. So topics that we're going to basically discuss tonight or today, this morning, wherever you are in the world. We have a lot of activity happening, obviously inside the ecosystem. It's about, we're allowed to swear here, it's about fucking time, right? We had a little insurgence occur, probably, December time, and that kind of faded out. But now we have significant action from one of the main wallets, which has actually changed the entire landscape. And that's one topic that we're going to hit tonight. The other topic that we're going to discuss, or I am going to make comment on, is community, right? Certain rifts inside of our space, which is not ideal. It's not what we need to be actually putting out there in social media realm, and everything in between that may just come up in the conversation. So honored to have both of my good friends here to support us to get through this conversation, to try to put the hex, the post-chain ecosystem back on the right track. That's our objective for this evening.
Yep, absolutely. Axis, anything you want to say just as we're getting the conversation going?
Yeah, man. So, happy to be back on stage with the two guys that started it all. Going back to get some. Let's go back and remember how this all started. It was actually the launch of ICOSA from the icosahedron protocol that brought us together. Over a year and a half ago already. And we've seen a lot of crazy calls. We actually made some pretty good calls as a team here on Hedron and Icosa going into that launch. And I think pretty sure Hedron went on like a 30x run that time.
Yep.
And then again last year in the spring, Silver and I were getting together and we saw this move happening on Hex and I mean, wow! Like, what an amazing run! It was a 700. It's easily forgotten that Hex went and did a 700% move last Q1.
Right.
But I mean, it was pretty impressive. And so, I mean, here we are coming back together again, right on cue. This newest revelations from Richard Hart, what he's saying, what he's coming on with from this, basically defending all of DeFi, decentralized finance, kind of puts him in a unique position to put Pulse Chain and Hex front and center as the pinnacle application for decentralized finance. And I think that's an exciting topic, and I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think we can just launch. We'll just launch straight out with that one, right? So we get people, really engaged with this conversation. So for quite a while, Richard went super quiet, obviously understandable because he was under pressure, gagging orders or whatever it was. Lawyers were telling him, you need to be quiet. So that was really interesting to see how the price, you could just say the price chart reacted to the absence of this entity, this person, this leader, this driving force inside the community. And I think it's fair to say a lot of people started to lose faith inside of the entire ecosystem. There's no denying it, right? Price chart is actually the truth of what reality was. And what was hyper interesting in literally like the last one day, the whole thing. I mean, even people say, oh, Silver's back, he's going to be talking bearish again. I was bearish for a very good reason, right? All of the fundamentals, sure, we know what the protocol is. We know the immutable code. We know the community. We know these are all very, very strong factors. But this actually is not enough during the time that we've just transitioned through. However, we cut all that right there because the dynamic has flipped
completely.
exactly 180 degrees. The
Absolutely.
game has now changed, right? So now we're launching from a very strong point where even the comments have now been turned on Richard's Twitter account. That is a very new feature that he has allowed comment to happen. He's now being very aggressive in his stance. So that automatically tells me this guy is 100% sure he's going to conquer and win the battle that he's about to take to the SEC, right? Otherwise, he would not have changed how he speaks, allowing comments, more interaction, and you can guarantee that more streams are probably going to follow as well imminently. Saying, I have 11 lawyers, 11, not one, not two, not three, fucking 11 lawyers, and they're not going to be cheap lawyers. These guys are going to be the best of the best. These guys are going to onslaught the SEC, and I think the case, they have all the evidence that they need to fire back. And to be honest, I think the SEC are completely fucked. I think they got no way to get out of the situation because just the few tweets that he's done, the stance that he's doing, the game's now changed. Not even mentioning how the Sacrifice wallet has also introduced itself back into the market, which some people would deem as, this is potentially questionable, having that level of involvement, of capital involvement into its own coin. And obviously we don't even know who controls that wallet. Okay. From an SEC point of view, who controls that wallet is unknown. Okay. But cash has been injected into the market. Words have been put out into the market. Ripple effects are going across the market right now. And price is reacting.
I think
this
you said it
is
best.
all that you have to know.
I think you said it best yesterday when we were talking privately that this is going to have like a ripple effect all across the entire cryptocurrency space. And it'll start there, and then it'll actually make its way out into TradFi. On any good news or resolution, you see the movement on the price charts in the hours, following that announcement, and the amount of force that he showed in that one tweet with the, attached filing report for dismissal, and the amount of firepower that he's got behind him and who he has behind him is just like unprecedented when it comes to bringing the fight. Exactly. And he's coming from the stance of defending blockchains as free speech. So he doesn't really have to put himself in a position of defending himself at all. He's defending the technology, which makes his stance even more powerful. And I mean, he's backed by, lawyers of the like who have defended Elon Musk successfully, and old
people who were high up in the SEC.
SEC previously. I think I read somewhere this guy was in there for 15 years, or it was in 2015, I think, is when he was working over there. And so these guys aren't chumps, and they know the law inside and out. And you got to remember, going back to the beginning of Hex, Richard had already considered a lot of these different things about how Hex fails the Howey test on all four legs, and he was very careful with his use of words and language, so he didn't fall into any of these pitfalls. And he's been on that train of thought since before Hex even launched.
Yeah.
So I think he's got his bases covered.
That really famous interview he did with Eric Wall, where Eric Wall is like, this is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard of. Like that, where that quote came from. A lot of clips started coming out. I don't remember when, a couple months ago, but it was all, I think it was when the SEC case dropped. It was all the language he was using was like directly addressing the things that were used as the arguments against him from the SEC. So like this whole plan, this whole unfolding seems to at least have been planned from the very beginning, like you said, before Hex even launched. really quick on the SEC law stuff. I'm going to drop a link to a tweet Money Game Crypto did. He did a breakdown of all 11 lawyers. It was an amazing tweet. Definitely go check that out if you want like the details on like the credentials of everybody, especially one of the guys who I don't remember which one he was, but he is like high up, really high up in the SEC. And so that's really, really bullish that he has such a powerhouse legal team behind him who is specialized to deal with such litigation.
Awesome. Yeah. So the question for me, like Lays, so now that this defense is being structured, and actually instead of being defensive, it's now going offensive, right? He's taking it to the SEC, right? That's the difference. So now they're going to be on the back foot defending, and I don't know what the percentages are. Wasn't it something like 98% of every lawsuit that the SEC does, they actually win? Something like that. I don't know if that was the right percentage.
I don't think
But
they win.
sure
They
about
lose more than they win, I think.
Okay, we need to double check that one. But what I'm really curious about is actually because Hex has been so suppressed through the whole ecosystem, and now that it's people are aware of what it is, what Pulse Chain is, but it's still kind of put in that shadow market. What actually happens when that case gets settled? And I would imagine that there's going to be a pretty high number that's in Richard's mind of what settlement, what damages are his target, right? He's going to want to punish them for what they've actually done, silenced him for the best part of a year. Okay, that's he suppressed the entire the SEC have suppressed the entire ecosystem. That's damaged everyone who has been loyal for the entire period of what has been effectively an overdrawn 2-year bear market. Yeah. So there's going to be a big backlash that he's going to come out fighting from that corner. And what I'm really curious about is when that gets settled, which I presume I'm already classing it as now being settled, right? Otherwise, there wouldn't be so much ferocity in the approach that's being taken now. What is the secondary implications going back into the crypto sphere, all the exchanges that fail to list, right? Now that basically gets cleared as not a security, not a scam, not an exit, none of these things. What is the response from the centralized exchanges? What is the response from all those people that spoke bad? What is the response from all those other people in the crypto space who now have nothing to back up their claims that it's a Ponzi, it's a scam, it's, he's running all these other excuses that we've seen and we've dealt with for the last 4 years. Yeah. Now, how does that change the onboarding approach into the Pulse Chain 100%. Ecosystem?
I think it totally shifts the conversation away from Pulse Chain and Hex, and it turns Richard into the savior of DeFi because he's fighting on behalf of all of crypto. It's not just about Pulse Chain and Hex, but it's just going to be by association. His projects are going to be mooning. So like I'm looking at this whole thing as a marketing tactic too, just as much as it is defensive cryptocurrencies, real cryptocurrencies. What's the best marketing thing in the world, you guys? It's big green fucking candles. And we already know that he's starting to deploy this capital to make that a reality. And, if the guy who just defended DeFi successfully against regulatory overreach his coins are going like insane and going up, doubling every 2 to 3 weeks, like that's just going to be a capitulation into DeFi. It's just not. There's not going to really be a Richard created them. The scam narrative will go away. The community is going to like explode, like the amount of new people getting in, and so the conversation is going to be so frothy. All those other talking points are gonna fade into obscurity. I really look at it as a capitulation away from centralized cryptocurrencies and a movement toward free-loving, free market cryptocurrencies, which would be true DeFi, where it's all transparent on the chain.
And I think that that potential narrative shift for Richard, or at least the role Richard has played in the greater crypto sphere, can't be like emphasized enough, right? Like he's kind of been like the bastard child of crypto since even before Hex was launched, and when he was doing his when he was really into like the BTC Bitcoin Cash debate. Like he's always been like at the center of controversy within crypto, and kind of has not been adopted very, very well, especially over Hex, especially once Hex launched. But now he's kind of in this unique situation where he has the ability to set precedent that will dictate the future policy and the future ability for people to safely use crypto without the worry of being secure. At the very least, give people a blueprint on how to go about participating in DeFi without having to be a security necessarily. That's instantiated and precedent legally, right? And that's something that everybody can benefit from in the greater crypto field. So now people have an incentive to get behind him in the movement that in the and where he's trying to take this case and where he's trying to take Hex and Pulse Chain overall. And of course, that is going to translate into the price chart at some point in time. And I think you said it probably best, just like capitulation into DeFi. That seems to be where this is heading.
Yeah, I wish, Silver, you were looking at the blockchain more, so you could give us some perspective on what you're seeing over on the chain. But just my gut feeling is that we're seeing a lot more action, not just from those big wallets, but people are just flooding in behind it as he takes the fight forward. And so it'd be interesting to know, like, if somebody to total up, if anyone's out there listening, total up and find out how much capital is sitting sidelined, ready to deploy, into something as this story develops.
Yeah, I'm needing the action to actually happen. Like I said, I was starting to be a bit concerned during, November. There was a bit of a pop in December. Then it started to fade out. So it's just like, how many times is this stuff going to happen? It's only now that I'm going to start to have a bit more eyes on. So hopefully I'll be able, next time we have a conversation, there should be a bit more on who is exactly doing what. But you can get a good feel from experience that I have, just basically seeing how much money you actually need to make certain things move, sort of candle volumes, jumps, that sort of thing. And I think there's definitely we're probably in the range right now, and this is just a gut feeling, vibe feeling of where it is right now. And I did say a while ago, inside of say PHEX, you're gonna have to kind of break above that 222, something like that, to at least get out of where the initial collapse happened when the SEC came out and started silencing what was going on inside of Rich's account. And now that we're back up pretty close to those regions now, and obviously EHEX, we had the Alex guy come in, he did his thing, he exited, and now that has been completely absorbed, pretty much back up to the same valuations. So that's actually very powerful to see. And at the same time, the PHEX is doing the same. Pulse Chain almost, pretty much back at the SAC valuation as well. So everything is now aligned. And the question is, you probably, if you understand, like basically what we're outlining right here during the first, 20 minutes we've been doing this, there should be zero reason why now you would want to sell, because everything is now in full motion. Whereas before, during the December one, there was still a high amount of uncertainty, which is why a lot of people were cashing out on the rallies that were happening, purely because they see any pump as something that you should sell into.
This is a perfect point to pivot into like the market making angle of this whole situation. Let's say consumer sentiment or the sentiment of the market has completely turned on its head now. And what was once uncertainty is now like people are feeling really confident, almost like there's like a real hard concrete floor below them, which is something you can like actually press off of and jump up and capture market or gains in the market again. Like before it was just felt like the difference is like we were like falling into a black hole versus now you're standing on solid ground. That's literally what the market did overnight
Yep.
And we're even seeing that here on the TVLs on EHEX. There was a question for you, Silver. You can answer in a second about, are you more bullish on EHEX or PHEX this cycle? I want you to take that question in a second, but first I'd like to look at the Uniswap pool here on the Ethereum side and just show you guys how much this has changed over the past 24 hours. It looks like there is some sort of resistance here coming up. Like this is a huge brick of hex liquidity that's been put out there. And then behind us, we have a little bit of support, but I mean, this just showed up. This wasn't here a few days ago. So it's interesting if the market does want to really get bullish on EHEX here. There's a lot of liquidity for someone to absorb. Just looking at it here. So 5 zeros and an 8. Let's see where that is on the hex. We're running into some resistance here. So there's currently a dumper coming in. He's dumped 50 million. He's dumping 50 million. He's got 17 million left. It's possible that this dump gets eaten up and goes higher, but it's also somewhat dependent on other things that's happening. But yeah, so if we look at the Ethereum where that new range is, let's check it out here.
What I will add to that while that's loading is you need to understand that the WETH values of each of those brackets is 3 WETH. Each bracket, you're looking at like what's that, $7,000-8,000, right, to rip through each one of those, which is nothing. If you're looking at billions of dollars, like you're saying, what's the question? How many people on the sidelines? There's still a lot of people on the sidelines, and there's still a lot of people that have the liquid hex. But I think the liquid hex is going to completely change because now they're not going to be nervous about what is my exit liquidity. Now they're going to be looking at what is the unrealized gain if I am to exit now that the pendulum has flipped 180, right?
And yeah, go ahead, Axis. I'll comment after.
Oh, I was just saying this is where our brick is between these levels here, which is like a 100% range. So some new whale, someone's putting up liquidity here, so they're like, hey, if you a new whale you want to buy, here's something to buy. Right now we're getting rejected off that level, but we'll see how this plays out. You are right about the liquidity on the Ethereum side. It has the amount of hex available for sale in the market has been declining, and we're getting near those levels that we saw a year ago during that big run up, where the liquidity gets down underneath like 100 million hex in the pools. So this is from March of last year. See how this tops out in July, where things got most bearish for EHEX, and then you get the SEC crash, and then that was some was absorbed, but this was the peak here in August. Right after the SEC crash, there was 236 million EHEX in the pools. Ever since then, we've been on a declining slope. So here we are. We're at currently 120 million left. When you start getting down to the 80-90 million hex available on market is when stuff starts to go kind of parabolic or can have really big upside moves.
Yeah, so I'll jump in there, and again, be realistic in certain things, because what that data is telling you, that there's 200 million, 170, 150, 100. There's also a lot of wallets. This is why I've always been on the cautious side with certain things, especially on the EHEX, purely because there's a lot more available than what is actually being shown and displayed in those metrics. Example, people say, oh, can you comment on Bank X? Example. Right, there's big wallets out there that do have potential, but in like lots of people say, that is easily absorbed. Okay, there is easy absorption of the wallets that are there as long as the demand, always supply demand. But the reality is, the story, the sentiment has dynamically changed, which means even if there's 1 billion or 2 billion at this price range, still down, what is it, 95% down still, whatever it is, that is very cheap for people to acquire and actually pick up a bag of 100 million, right? This guy is sitting out there with DAI.
It's minus 98% right now against Ethereum
example,
in a market where Ethereum's rising. So there's
a wallet
so much opportunity.
With $600 million of DAI that can easily absorb any single wallet out there, and it won't even touch the surface. For example, not saying that that's going to happen, But even if like 5%, 10%, I'm not even guaranteeing. I don't even think it's going to deploy too much. I think it's more a spur to give enforcement to the community. I'm here. I support this. We're going to be getting out of this situation soon. Don't give up. And
100%.
the candle basically spoke for itself. Okay. And now it's up to the rest of the community out there. Are you with us? Are you in here? Or are you still on the sidelines? Or are you exiting? Exactly like the guy that's doing the LP right now, who's trying to, remove some of that risk. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with removing risk when somebody's got, a significant position, right? That's part of the game. Don't blame them. Okay. So that is actually beneficial because that's creating chart support, right? When it goes into that range and it's a little bit choppy, it holds formation in there. That creates for the TA guys, that creates the ranges, the support levels, what they need to do their sort of things. Even though I don't follow the TA 100%, the point is it's there to acquire. And I have seen time and time again, there are one entity, two entity, they can wipe that whole section out. Okay, it can happen that quick. There's not a lot there. It looks like a lot. It looks like a challenge. It's not, especially when you think about how some people were selling up at 50 cent, 40 cent, 30 cent. They've moved out into other areas. Now they're coming back and they're looking at this with new eyes. Okay, the game has now changed. It looks probable that Hex is going to survive. It's going to fight the SEC. Post-chain could do fantastically well now when this whole system comes back with new life. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing the new life come through. So the question is, how do the community react? Because how I saw the community react during the December phase was the community already gave up. Even when life came back in to the coin, the ecosystem, the community reacted by, we will sell the pumps. Instead of supporting the pumps to get it out, to create even more energy and impact, they capitulated at a 20% rally, at a 30% rally. They're like, fuck it, I'm happy to take the rally, take the green candle.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes against the ethos of how to pull out of a bear market. That's really what the naive people don't understand. When big actions start to happen, don't be weak. Don't, buckle your knees and collapse and go out at the first opportunity that you get. You're missing out on a much higher target. There's a lot of guys in the community that talk about this stuff. But I think the phase that we're going to go into now is exactly kind of what Axis has been outlining of the exits that potentially could come now, because it's been reinforced by what the SAC address does and now what Richard is doing with the SEC.
And I think it's important to highlight also, like, how much crap Hex and the RH stuff has been through to get to this point of confidence, right? Like a 99% dip, SEC case, splitting liquidity across chains, and kind of this big question of like, where is the liquidity and like, how is it going to shake out? Like all of these things are like really, really, in some ways, novel and novelly outperforming to the downside compared to previous cycle coins that had a big bear market and then recovered, right? Like most coins that had gone under 95% typically don't recover. And there's even a quote from RH saying, if you go under 95%, you don't have product market fit. That overperformance to this downside, now coupled with this flipping of confidence, will act almost like a rubber band for like performance to the upside, because you have to think, how much worse can it get than what it was before? And if we can't get worse than what it was before, that makes it easier to conceive, that increases the confidence to continue to have capital in there, to keep capital through the pumps, add capital as time is going on, and to support the ecosystem as it goes forward. I think that overperformance to the downside with this confidence is a really important dynamic, because it's going to cement Hex if it survives. If the RH ecosystem survives, does well in the bull market, it pretty much cements it as a mainstay in crypto as a whole, right? Like to survive what it has survived, and especially like if eHex does an all-time high, that's like unprecedented success from immensely from also unprecedented downside at the same time.
And I think,
go ahead.
Sorry, just to add to that one, it's important to understand the difference when that statement is made about if a coin goes below 95%. Understand that that metric is taken from the majority of the crypto sphere that is listed on centralized exchanges that is easy to buy and purchase, whereas Hex was always in a black hole, hidden, masked, mocked for a long time. So that's, that means the sell pressure is probably going to be overextended as well because it's more hidden, harder,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think anyone that's soy enough to be selling at these prices just doesn't understand how high this thing can go. We could literally see this thing 10x by March under these conditions. It's just divestment away from. Look at everybody that sold their EHEX. They need to get it back. I mean, that's basically the rule. And then with any increase of new guys coming in, I mean, you're just not going to be able to get the amount of units anymore. So it's kind of like a blessing that there are folks that are willing to give their supply back down here because, as Silver was saying before, like this jacked plebin.eth guy that's selling 50 million on our heads right now, that's a liquidity injection we desperately needed at that time. My people might not see it that way because they're still sitting in PTSD from 2 years of bear, but man, it's a blessing, man. So just take it as it comes, and trust me, there's plenty of whales that are happy to take your coins off you at a penny per EHEX or less than that. So we're not
EHEX is
phased.
still under a penny. It's still under a penny right now. At least
it was going for the ratio, man. It was I was looking at the EHEX PHEX ratio this morning, and it was we were actually seeing a return to closer to parity. But this most recent dump, let's see here if I can find it. Actually, we're still there. It's like 1.5 to 1 right now, PHEX to EHEX to PHEX. And it's still in a decline. We got rejected off this, what was previously support is now resistance. So EHEX is actually taking the lead, even in this downtrending moment. So it's, keep your eyes peeled. I mean, who's been blowing the EHEX trumpet this whole last year and a half? It's, we were. So it'll be interesting to see. He's only got 5 million left. Take the opportunity as it comes because you won't have the chance to buy down here that much longer. It's kind of it's a blessing. So take it as that.
So I think going back to the question that you raised as well, there was a question of which one do I think is going to perform better, like EHEX or PHEX, right? I've always been big on EHEX. I think the staking aspect is an issue, at least for a while, for the cost to actually unstake the stakes. If you're just holding liquid, I think you've got a good chance of it performing a lot better, and it's closer to the money supply. Yeah, you're closer to the Ethereum, you're closer to that aspect. But I've started to have more of opinion where, as an ecosystem, trying to break away from all the wrongs of the rest of the ecosystem to create its own hub, its own life, its own future, its own dynamic growth, everything about what Post-Chain was designed to do. Therefore, the PHEX to me being a lot cheaper, faster to transact, albeit that there's a lot more friction involved with trying to do the onboard aspect to it. But imagine, a world in the future where there is on ramps, there is off ramps, there's all this ability bolted into Post-Chain, which makes things super simple. We've got the leverage aspect happening over there too. Everything is growing and spawning and replicating, and the industry, I think if Richard is to really succeed with taking on the SEC, challenging all the centralized exchanges, and basically proving to the world that they are wrong in how they do things. And then we have, as everybody knows inside of the entire crypto space, the Hex community are the community to not mess around with, right? We are here, albeit that at times some of us go a bit quiet, but we're still there. We're watching. It's just there's not much to comment. When things are going down, there's not much to talk about. There's other things that are important in life that we will have to achieve. So in terms of the overall game and agenda, I'm just saying, imagine Post-Chain really not only taking on the SEC, taking on Ethereum, and actually attracting and converting. I think we were talking about this as well, Axis. 1 million users. We get the 1 million users onboarded. into Pulse Chain, into the ecosystem, and how that flourishes and how it all dynamically moves. And then what is the need for Ethereum? Like, what do you even need it for? Sure, it's more of a, again, a legacy type market where value and things are associated to.
Yeah.
But there is a transition where the value can come through, and now that becomes a new central point, which again is completely decentralized from everything else, right? You own your own keys. Everything is completely frictionless when it's inside of its own system, not connected to the friction inside of the legacy, which is the Ethereum side. So in that way, that is why I have more of a belief that I would like to see the PHEX start to gain more traction. And I don't care about any of the stories. Sorry, it's a long answer. I don't care about any of the stories about all these other influences inside of the Hex ecosystem, selling the bags, trying to manipulate the market for people to buy their side. That, you know, they've dumped the EHEX, now they've gone all in on the PHEX. I don't care about these stories. I care about what is better for the entire ecosystem to grow the ecosystem, right? I don't think it's so amazingly good to have two chains. And I think that's why Richard just let the market decide. His free market, let the market decide.
I wanted to say that with this EHEX PHEX conversation, like, think of like EHEX as like the gateway drug. Like if you're on Ethereum and you're an Ethereum whale and you're watching this Pulse Chain thing as a potential threat to your ecosystem, but you know this, you see the value in it. At one by one, these Ethereum whales are going to capitulate and they're going to be like, well, how can I defend my chain? Because there's a bit of ownership with like, Ethereum is my chain. I have a bunch of Ethereum. I want to defend my network from people going to Pulse Chain. Well, the way you do that is you'd bolster and make EHEX more valuable, which then actually it's a way for them to use the same damn thing, but bring back value to Ethereum. And then, and in doing so, that pushes up the valuation of EHEX, and which then also pushes up the value of the bridged in EHEX on Pulse Chain. So it actually, it's a net positive for both chains because you're increasing the value of both at the same time. But EHEX is that like gateway drug, so to speak, that gives you a taste of those mad gains again that you just don't get on Ethereum anymore. And in doing so, like, you're also benefiting the Pulse Chain. So no matter what, Ethereum doesn't get out of this without basically having two parallel highways that redistributes traffic to make both more valuable over time. And you can see that if you want to pull up this bridge. This value here of this, it's very good for people to see a strong visual. And so what I want to point you to is this EHEX, 2.2 billion EHEX sitting on Pulse Chain. The dollar value right now is 18.8 million. But before this guy decided to dump 50 million, this was actually up to almost 99 million. So this is down 2 million-ish, maybe 4 million-ish from that peak price here just a few minutes ago up here. It's like that little move, 25% down, took away 25% more on 18 million. So what is 25% of 18? 18.8 times 0.25 plus 18.8. So this was $23.5 million of value just like a couple hours ago. So you're virtually lending value to the Pulse Chain because EHEX is like this. It's like the clutch in an engine. So the clutch decides what gear you're in. And so as EHEX ramps up in price more and more and more, it gives the engine, which is Pulse Chain, more gears to play with. You can shift in gear and actually create a bigger spin of momentum of price movement in that ecosystem just because of this one coin. It's basically like, and then if you figure like what's freaking PulseX down the road as these new features comes online, that's going to be the next narrative is icosahedron V2, PulseX single-sided staking, blah, 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 some limit orders. That's all going to be like little attachments, like now we're getting the NOS injector, whatever. All these other pieces will come online to spin up to even provide more price momentum. And that's exactly what drove EHEX up in the first place was narratives, right? First it was the Genesis God Whale, then it was Big Payday, then it was the announcement of Pulse Chain, then it was Pulse Chain Sacrifice, then it was PulseX Sacrifice, then it was Pulse Chain didn't launch, then it was Testnet V3, then it was Pulse Chain did launch, and now we're back at ground zero. Look, in the beginning, EHEX goes down minus 99%, goes on to do a 10,000x. Now we're here, we got a full reset, minus 99%, And now we're only 191% into a potential hundreds or even thousands of X move from here. And if you're getting to get that adoption that Silver's talking about, and a Metcalfe's law does take root, every time you double the amount of users, you 10x the value of the network, is what I think, right? So
you square it. Yeah.
you square the value of the network.
Yeah, you
So
go
if
up
you
by 3, increase the value by 9 because you square it by 3.
so in this case, it if they turn into hex stakers, it even compounds that effect even more, because that limits the amount of sell pressure, which is why the people in the community need to really explain the value proposition of those longer term stakes and hex. Because if this thing's going to play out like Bitcoin, this is like one of the talking points on my stream yesterday with DIY investing and Crispy Man was, as this thing goes on over time, it's going to create price floors. You're not going to get, Pulse Chain V2 and another 99% dip, guys. You're just not. And so with any amount of user adoption, you're going to put price floors in. And a good example of that is like if you just look at what Hex would look like if you put Bitcoin's fractal on it, this is what it would look like. You're just not, you're going to create price for it. You're never coming back down here again. So yeah, I know people have been saying it for years, like don't get left behind, but in this case, you really are going to get left behind. So, and this is what's going to create a feeding frenzy of buyers, is like the supply is just going to dry up. And guess where it dries up the fastest? Right here at the bottoms, when you can absorb hundreds of millions of units for a very low input cost. That's what Silver's been talking about. Silver would know. He's a market maker. He understands these things. This is if we played out like Ethereum, we'd be seeing $1 EHEX potentially combined, let's just say conservatively, dollar combined by January of 2025. Wouldn't that blow everyone away? Well, what happens if Hex just does what Hex does? I mean, you could be seeing 15 cents by February, guys, because this could just go vertical on a mad rush of a new adoption into this ecosystem. Or, maybe it takes a little longer. That's just all speculation. But I mean, if Hex does what Hex did before, you're looking at $10 going in the middle of 2025. So it's just food for thought.
Well, there's another angle to everything you just said, with eHex being kind of like the gateway drug into Pulse Chain, and that there is like a whole nother warehouse of, like, to continue the analogy of like all the drugs you can think of once you get inside, right? Like we have a whole DeFi ecosystem pretty much already built out on Pulse Chain, where you have a bunch of different ways to be able to earn more crypto on top of your crypto, earn kind of like income, whether it's in the form of liquidity providing, staking pools, utilizing these different protocols and the mechanics that they have. And all of them have a variety of different risk profiles associated with them. So investors from all different types of risk appetites have some kind of option to be able to utilize their crypto on the Pulse Chain. And so once you just kind of like get them in and then show them this entire world of DeFi that's existing kind of underneath the ground of Ethereum generally right now, it's pretty powerful. It's like you get them in, and then all of a sudden there's like an infinite number of things that people can pay attention to, learn about, research, whether it's the vibrant meme coin community, DeFi protocols like Liquid Loans, Power City, traders have Fame, liquidity providers have pretty much all the dexes that are available on Ethereum, V2, V3, Balancer. We have all those options on Pulse Chain as well. So like people who are seasoned in these ecosystems on Ethereum and have gone through those cycles before utilizing these protocols almost have like another chance to be able to kind of run it back and repeat that with the same protocol forked on a new chain with a vibrant community who has already survived a 99% dip, all those things I was talking about previously. I mean, like the strength of the community paired with the forking of solid DeFi projects that have stood the test of time, paired with a vibrant streaming community who's public facing, who's very who gives educational content, analysis content, like anything that you want to learn about Pulse Chain. It's all readily available for free on YouTube, on Twitter, on people's personal websites. I mean, like the infrastructure for mass adoption has been set and built and is continued to be built on.
I think
Yeah.
that's a great transition point. 45 minutes. Okay. Last 15 minutes, because I know you guys
Yep.
probably got to run. Transition for that. Okay. Hex, we've been around 4 years plus. A lot of people that came into Hex, they were more anti-establishment to the traditional area. They saw Richard very bipolar for some people. Some people like his mannerisms, the way that he teaches, the way he does things, his brashness, his challenge to what's going on out in the world. And I think that that attracted a certain niche group, and that niche group, they learned a hell of a lot. They, the ones that are still here today, not the ones that sold, not the ones that cashed out, got wiped out, just traded their trade cards, right? They just destroyed their entire accounts, doing whatever they were doing, thinking they could actually outperform what the actual trend was, and they're gone. Those people, the market gets smarter after every season, every cycle. So when guys are actually out there on YouTube, in Twitter, spending their time to teach, to share their wisdom, to share their words. This is the part, I think, of the conversation where I'm going to say, like, guys that have been around in the community a long time, not everyone has been a good actor, right? That's self-evident. But I think when times were highly difficult at the start of Hex, people should have an element of, these guys put their faces up very early on in the community, and they were trying to spread the word, the good word. And like any community at the beginning, it's a very closed group. It's a brotherhood, a sisterhood. There's community. This is what was actually very compelling at the beginning, what attracted people. Suddenly you've got this place where people are coming out on camera, right? I was very nervous at the beginning. RG3 is the guy that pulled, got me onto a live video, for example. At the time, there's only 200 people watching. The challenge that I gave him was, and at the time, 200 people was almost impossible to get onto a live stream. Okay. I gave him a challenge. Okay, I'll do a face reveal if you can get 200 watches. Bang. Everybody tries to do, because they all think I'm Indian. I don't know why my accent. People thought I was Indian. So I trick everybody one day. I just show my arm. That's what I do. They're like, fuck. Sorry, swore again. He's not a robot. He's not Indian. He's not all these different things. Okay. So the point is, grassroots, everything started to grow, and there's a lot of people who put a lot of effort when nobody else was out there, and we're all learning at the same time, right? Everybody evolves and learns and studies, and this is why everyone has their own little unique skill set. Okay, nobody's perfect at everything, right? But as a community, you come together and you take the values, the strengths of some, and then when you're weak in one other area, your brother will come up and back you up in that area. That's why it's always better to have other people involved when you're doing streams. So as of late, one of the things that I've come across is how there are, there's always arguments, there's always turf wars, there's always difference of opinions. There's nothing wrong with the difference of opinion. The question is, can you handle yourself appropriately in a domain where we're forward facing to the outside world? This is something that I think everybody inside the community has to address. When we see things that are not or challenging to each other, abusive to each other, I just completely don't agree with that type of activity in the space. Articulate your viewpoints, give people their time to speak. Someone want to say something, let them speak. Yeah, it's like there's a lot of work, a lot of effort that people have put in. And one of the things when people turn against people, and I've been through a few communities, I've been in crypto since 2000 and late 15, 16, something like that. So I've been around a little while. Communities can turn on people. And what happens is those people will just be like, forget it. Why am I going to spend my time to help these people when I'm not actually getting anything from it, but I'm trying to help, put back good karma, try to show people the right way. Even if our words are 100% accurate or not, right? We're doing our best. Our mole is in the right place most of the time. There are bad actors. Bad actors need to be called out. But if people are doing 75%, 80% decent work, and then there's difference of opinions, and it's just an onslaught of like abuse. This is not acceptable in the space. Is how I see it. So I think as a community, we need to like self-regulate ourselves. I think that's an important lesson that we need to use going forward, especially when we're trying to onboard, because those sort of messages are only gonna defer people out. They're not gonna want to come and join this place, and that's how we're trying to get 1 million people in, and that's gonna send 20,000 people out.
100%. I've taken a pretty neutral stance on a lot of this over the years because honestly, I don't need to be involved in the bickering and the retardation that's going on in this space for the last 4 years. It's not like in good times, it's still there too. You got retards that are on Twitter just talking crap to every single person because they don't understand what a T-share is or because they don't like Richard Hart. It's like, let that guy walk and find the next one that will listen, because there's plenty of people that need saving. And you ain't saving anybody just yelling at somebody. They're just going to get turned off and walk away. And then that's word of mouth is the best form of advertising. And so I think we've crossed the Rubicon on needing bad advertisements by this point. So I'm with you on that. Now, I'll probably never step up, and if I see stupid stuff happening, I'm never going to be the guy that's going to step in and be like, hey, you guys should stop, because I think you guys kind of walk yourselves out the door in a lot of ways. And we've seen it time and time again. I could name drop so many people that have walked themselves out the door. And, that's kind of like the natural selection at work. So, I saw a video of a prominent Hex streamer or a Hex video creator saying he's broke and homeless and on the street just recently. I don't know if that was a troll video or what was going on there, but perfect example of what I'm talking about. Like, huge ego, just freaking bolstering with energy last cycle, and now broke on the street. It's like there's a lot of those stories in here, but don't just look at that kind of stuff and be like, I don't want to be that guy. Help out where you can. Be useful. Don't be an idiot. Yeah. Well, I stay in your lane. And just support people, and the whole space will be better off for it.
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment too, because I generally try to stay out of that kind of stuff publicly. It's just like I just don't have too much time for it, and it doesn't interest me all that much. But there is always room for like polite discourse and like legitimate criticism of people's ideas or like even things that they're talking about. Generally, I draw the lines at like personal attacks. That's when like I start tuning out. I'm like, okay, this conversation is no longer interesting to me or productive. That's kind of like usually the heuristic I use once we start getting into like ad homs or like bringing out people's personal details to like win arguments or whatever. That's typically when I'm kind of like, okay, this is no longer productive. Really quickly before we transition, just we got a super chat from FastApp Tools saying, let's talk about bribes. This is just another guy who's a great example of somebody building for the community, trying to add value with his 2FUX protocol, building on top of the FUX ecosystem, the balancer fork. So if that's something you're interested in, that's the guy to follow and look out for. But yeah, guys, we've covered a good amount lately. We got a couple minutes left. Are there any topics you want to make sure that we hit before we sign off?
Just that Ethereum hit 2,700 while we were alive, and that's a big deal.
Let's go.
Gives those Ethereum whales more ammo to come and play in our system.
Absolutely. Well, didn't one of the things being tracked was Godwell setting up a sell side liquidity on ETH, right? On the
might be Godwell, might not be Godwell. We don't know.
A big wallet
that has a history with Hex. Yeah,
that has been buying. It has bought Hex before, so that's exciting. Maybe some of that money will flow over.
The call to action to that wallet. Hey man, if you're out there, we're ready for you.
Yeah, our bags are packed. Oh man. Well, I've definitely I've really enjoyed being back on stream with you guys. It's been a while. It's just feels like old times.
Yeah, really good, dude, with the LP course. Hey, Silver the Antidote, thank you so much for getting me in the right mind frame to get me out there, and I've now built a pretty successful brand over the past year. So I've been working hard, and it's starting to show off. And my education never ends, and I got a great group of guys over there at axisALiVE.com that, and the group keeps getting smarter and better. But yeah, it's all thanks to you, Silver, for bringing on Sloth and I back in 2022, and starting us off and giving us the confidence and teaching us. And now here we are. Sloth's made an amazing LP course for free, made available for free. That was once a paid thing. So you guys definitely go check out that playlist. It'll jumpstart you in. And then he even made a bonus video recently about how to use V3 liquidity on 9mm. So I highly recommend that. I don't have to go make the LP content now. I just send them over to Sloss free stuff, and then they can learn from him, which is amazing. So thank you for that. And just remember that all started with silver. So, props were there
Come on,
due.
guys, you know, you both come on leaps and bounds. It's great to see when people actually have the attitude, the work ethic, that they immerse themselves into learning new things. Because when you start to understand, for you access the charts, Sloth, you're doing the liquidity, you got a lot of the technical foundations of what's going on, and it just creates a much rounder package of understanding exactly how the crypto works. And yeah, I'm a big advocate of understanding exactly how liquidity flows. And that's actually all you need to really focus on. If you focus on some of the chain data, you don't even need to listen to what people say, because that is what speaks truth. And then when you watch what's happening inside the liquidity pools, where decent potentials are. And then that goes in conjunction in the wider macro market of what the TA will say. Now, the TA, I don't agree too much on the lower market cap coins, but in things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, some of those sort of projects out there, you really can start to see, and I'm seeing inside of Ethereum, like Ethereum is like really thin, which is why it's so easy to pop. And I did put a tweet out a while ago, and if you're inside there, I say, look, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing big 10% jumps like in a day. And it was only like yesterday or day before that actually hit. Okay, it was a few weeks late, but it hit, because I can see the liquidity is that range. And now that Bitcoin's finished its ETF news, the transition will start to happen. And now it's highly exciting where we are right now. And you have to have the skill set, right? The tools and the skill set and the knowledge and the experience, and listen to the people that actually have those experiences to give what their indications are, what their gut feelings are, and what they're actually seeing on a fundamental level happening inside of the market. So yeah, love you guys. Appreciate you jumping on last minute, out of the blue, random, but that's how we do it.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'll just I'll echo a little bit of what Axis said. Silver, me and Axis wouldn't be here without you, man. Like this, what you've given us the confidence to like put ourselves out there, make content for people. You're a huge mentor for me. I appreciate that. Axis, man, it's been a pleasure, working with you, producing content with you, producing courses with you. I remember like when we were talking in the background when you were making axisALiVE, just like putting it all together. And it's been super awesome seeing how successful it's been. So anybody here who's interested in that stuff, like definitely go to axisalive.com, check out what he's got going on. It's an awesome community, and you can learn a lot in there. So yeah, I've enjoyed working with you guys a lot, and it's going to be exciting going into this bull market with you guys, being able to document the whole thing publicly.
Mm-hmm. Just remember, guys, who was right.
24.
Yep.
That's right.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace out.
Later.